My wife said, "It's just a harmless crush, you're being insecure." I responded, "You're probably right." Then quietly sent screenshots of her texts to her crush's wife. Now her phone is blowing up. Guess it wasn't so harmless after all. I'm 41 and dealing with the aftermath of what my wife called a harmless crush. Spoiler alert, it wasn't harmless. Quick background. Been married to Sarah for 12 years. She's 38, works in marketing at a tech company. I run a small construction business, do pretty well for myself. We live in a decent neighborhood, no kids by choice, generally got along fine until recently. About 3 months ago, Sarah started mentioning this new guy at work. Derek Thompson, team leader, recently transferred from their Seattle office. At first it was normal work stuff. Derek said this, Derek suggested that, I didn't think much of it. Then it got weird. Derek became the main character in every conversation. She'd come home with stories about how funny Derek was, how smart he was about marketing strategies. She mentioned restaurants Derek recommended that we should try, even suggested I switch to some brand of coffee because Derek thought it was better. I started paying attention. Sarah was suddenly very interested in her appearance on work days. New clothes appeared in her closet. She spent longer on makeup, got her hair done more often. She started working late more frequently, always on projects Derek was supposedly involved with. Last Friday night, we were watching TV when her phone kept buzzing. She was texting constantly, giggling at whatever was coming through. I asked who she was talking to. She told me it was just Derek having issues with his wife Karen. Marriage problems. She was just being supportive. Red flags everywhere. I kept my mouth shut but started watching closer. Saturday morning, I was bringing Sarah coffee in bed when I noticed her phone was face up and lit up with an incoming text. The preview showed Derek's name and part of a message that said, "Wish I could talk to you more without Kay getting suspicious." I pretended not to see it, but my stomach dropped. That wasn't workplace conversation. Later that morning, while Sarah was getting dressed, I heard her phone buzz again on the nightstand. Another text preview from Derek, visible on the lock screen. "You look amazing in that blue dress yesterday." That afternoon, when Sarah went to her yoga class, I made a decision I'm not proud of. I knew her phone passcode from watching her enter it countless times. I went through her messages with Derek. What I found was months of escalation. Started as work chat but gradually became personal. Recent messages included Sarah sending him photos of outfits asking which looked better. Derek complaining about his wife not understanding him. Sarah saying she looked forward to their coffee breaks more than anything else in her day. Derek calling her beautiful and saying he thought about her constantly. The most recent exchange from that morning had Derek saying he wished they could spend time together without worrying about their spouses. Sarah had responded with a heart emoji and maybe someday. I took screenshots of about 20 messages showing the clear progression from professional to personal to inappropriate. Then I put her phone back exactly where she'd left it. That evening I brought it up casually, asked if everything was okay with the Derek situation since she'd been talking about him a lot lately. She got defensive immediately, claimed they were just friends. I pointed out she seemed pretty involved in his personal life, the marriage problems, and frequent contact. Her face went red when she realized I might have seen something. She accused me of being paranoid. I told her I'd noticed some message previews on her lock screen, and this seemed like more than friendship. That's when she dropped the line that sealed her fate. "It's just a harmless crush. You're being insecure. Derek is having real problems with his wife, and I'm helping him work through them. If you can't handle me having male friends, then that's your issue." Harmless crush. She actually said it out loud. I told her she was probably right, and I was probably just being insecure. She seemed satisfied with that response. Went back to her phone immediately. Sunday morning, while Sarah was at yoga, I did some research. Derek Thompson was easy enough to find on LinkedIn with his full name and company. From there, I found his personal Facebook page. His wife Karen had a public profile linked from his page. Looked like a normal family. 2 kids, nice house, regular vacation photos. Karen seemed like a decent person from her posts. I created a new Gmail account and sent Karen a message. Told her she didn't know me, but I thought there was something she should be aware of regarding her husband Derek and a coworker named Sarah. I attached the 20 screenshots and said I thought she deserved to know what was happening. Apologized for being the one to tell her, but felt she had a right to know. Sent it Sunday evening. Monday morning, Sarah left for work like normal. Around 11 a.m., her phone started going crazy. Call after call, text after text. She was working from home that day, so I could hear her panicking in the home office. Around noon, she came out looking like she'd seen a ghost. Said something happened at work. Derek's wife found some messages, and now she was causing problems. Derek was in trouble with HR. I asked what kind of messages with fake concern. Sarah claimed they were just innocent stuff, but Karen was blowing it out of proportion, making it sound like something it wasn't. I suggested that if they were innocent, then Derek should be fine. Sarah stared at me for a long moment. I could see the wheels turning. She was starting to figure out what happened. Asked if I'd done something, if I'd contacted Derek's wife. I played innocent. Asked why I would do that since I didn't even know Derek's wife's name. She couldn't prove anything, but she knew. The look on her face told me everything. Her phone rang again. I could hear her talking to Derek, claiming she didn't know how Karen got the messages, insisting they were private conversations. Derek was clearly not happy about his situation, and apparently blamed Sarah for not being more careful. The fallout was immediate and messy. Update 1 week later. The last week has been something else. Sarah's harmless crush turned into a complete disaster, and I've had front row seats to the whole show. Monday afternoon, after Derek's panicked calls, Sarah tried damage control. She called her boss to get ahead of any HR issues, spinning it as a misunderstanding about friendly workplace messages. But Karen hadn't just confronted Derek privately. She'd forwarded my screenshots to Derek's direct supervisor and copied HR on the email. Derek was called into a meeting Tuesday morning about inappropriate workplace communications. Sarah got pulled into HR Wednesday for questioning about their relationship. She tried to downplay everything, but the screenshots told a different story. The company takes workplace relationship policies seriously, especially when there's a supervisor-subordinate dynamic involved. Derek was technically Sarah's team leader. Derek received a formal written warning and mandatory sensitivity training. Sarah got moved to a different team to eliminate the reporting relationship. Both were warned that any further inappropriate contact would result in termination. Wednesday evening, Sarah was furious. Ranted about how unfair the whole situation was, how they never did anything physical, it was just conversations between friends. I reminded her that she'd called it a harmless crush. She backtracked, claiming she didn't mean it like that, but couldn't explain how she did mean it. Thursday brought more consequences. Derek's wife Karen apparently wasn't satisfied with just work discipline. She'd hired a marriage counselor and was demanding Derek cut all contact with Sarah, delete her number, and transfer to a different department. Sarah learned all this because Derek called her Thursday night in a panic. Karen was threatening divorce if he didn't comply with her demands. He was asking Sarah what they should do. Sarah seemed shocked there would be real consequences beyond work. When she suggested they could figure something out, Derek shut that down hard. Told her he couldn't lose his kids over workplace messages. Said they needed to stop all personal communication immediately. She tried to argue, but he hung up on her. Friday morning, Sarah woke up to find Derek had blocked her number. His LinkedIn profile no longer showed them as connections. She was effectively cut off from the person she'd been emotionally investing in for months. The social consequences started hitting over the weekend. A mutual friend from Sarah's yoga class mentioned she'd heard there was some drama at Sarah's work involving married colleagues. Word was spreading in their social circle. Sunday night, Sarah confronted me directly. Said she knew I'd contacted Karen somehow. I told her to prove it. She couldn't but kept pushing, asking who else would have done it. I suggested maybe Derek had confessed to someone. Maybe Karen had hired someone to investigate. Maybe it was just bad luck. Could be anything. She couldn't argue with that logic, but I could see she wasn't buying it. Update 2. 3 weeks later. 3 weeks since the screenshots went out, and the consequences keep rippling outward. Sarah's harmless crush has become the gift that keeps on giving. The work situation stabilized but didn't improve. Sarah's new team assignment came with a reputation attached. Everyone knew about the Derek situation. She went from being well-respected to being the woman who got involved with a married supervisor. Her new manager seemed unimpressed with the drama she'd brought to the company. Sarah started complaining about being passed over for interesting projects and excluded from client meetings. Turns out, having a reputation for inappropriate workplace relationships isn't great for career advancement. Derek's situation was more complicated. The formal warning stayed in his file, but he kept his job. However, Karen's demands for transparency meant she now monitored his work communications. Derek had to provide Karen access to his work email and phone to prove he wasn't contacting Sarah. Last week, Sarah heard through office gossip that Derek was looking miserable at work. His wife was requiring him to come straight home every day. No after-work drinks with colleagues, no working late without prior approval. Essentially, he was on a short leash trying to save his marriage. Meanwhile, Sarah was dealing with the social fallout. Karen had apparently shared the story with other wives in their neighborhood social group. Several of Sarah's acquaintances started giving her cold shoulders at community events. The narrative going around was that Sarah had been pursuing a married father of 2, trying to break up a family. The screenshots provided clear evidence that she'd been encouraging Derek's complaints about his marriage. Sarah tried damage control by telling her version of events. Poor misunderstood Sarah just being a friend to a troubled colleague. Vindictive Karen overreacting to innocent workplace conversations. Most people weren't buying it. The progression in those messages was pretty clear about where things were heading. Her sister Lisa visited last weekend and didn't hold back. Told Sarah she'd been stupid to get involved with a married man, especially at work. Pointed out that Derek was never going to leave his wife and kids for someone else's wife. Sarah insisted she hadn't been trying to break up Derek's marriage, just offering emotional support. Lisa laughed and asked if she really believed that excuse. Monday morning, Sarah tried a different approach with me. Suddenly very interested in our relationship, making elaborate dinners, suggesting weekend trips, being unusually affectionate. She proposed we take a vacation to reconnect, just the 2 of us. When I asked what we needed to reconnect from, she claimed she just wanted quality time together away from work stress. I asked if she meant stress from Derek. Her face went pale. She tried to deny there was any stress related to Derek. They barely spoke at work anymore. I pointed out that barely speaking to someone you used to text constantly seemed like a significant change. She didn't have a good response to that. Wednesday night, Sarah brought up the screenshots again. Complained that whoever sent them to Karen had destroyed people's lives over private conversations between friends. I reminded her they were conversations where she admitted having a crush on a married man. She tried to claim that was just a figure of speech, but I pointed out she'd used those exact words while looking me in the eye. She insisted she didn't mean anything serious by it. I asked what she did mean then. She couldn't give me a straight answer. By Friday, Sarah seemed to realize her normal tactics weren't working. She asked directly if I thought our marriage was in trouble. I told her that depended on whether she'd learned anything from the Derek situation. She asked what she was supposed to learn. I explained that choices have consequences. Other people's marriages matter, and calling something harmless doesn't make it harmless. For the first time since this started, she looked genuinely worried about losing me too. Final update. 2 months later. 2 months since I sent those screenshots and everything has settled into a new normal. Time for the final update because this story has reached its conclusion. Derek managed to keep his job, but his life changed dramatically. Karen's conditions for staying married included full transparency with his communications, no unsupervised contact with female colleagues, and regular marriage counseling sessions. Through office gossip, Sarah learned that Derek's social life essentially ended. No more after-work activities, no business travel without Karen's approval, no private meetings with female staff members. He was basically on probation in his own marriage. His career advancement also stalled. The formal warning in his file eliminated any chance of promotion in the near future. Karen's requirement for communication monitoring made him less effective in client relationships. He was essentially stuck in his current role indefinitely. Sarah's career recovery was slower. The department transfer helped, but her reputation took permanent damage. She was excluded from high-profile projects and client-facing roles. The promotion track she'd been on before Derek came along was essentially closed to her now. Her social rehabilitation was even harder. Karen's sharing of the screenshots created a narrative in their community that Sarah couldn't overcome. She went from being seen as a successful professional to being whispered about as someone who pursued married men. Several of her friendships became strained. Some people felt she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Others just didn't want to be associated with the drama and scandal. 6 weeks ago, Sarah finally admitted she knew I'd sent those screenshots to Karen. I didn't deny it anymore. She asked why I'd done it. I explained it was because she'd dismissed my concerns as insecurity, called her emotional affair a harmless crush, and chose to protect Derek's feelings over respecting our marriage. She claimed she'd never intended for things to go as far as they did with Derek. I pointed out that her messages showed a clear progression toward something more serious. She was testing whether Derek would be willing to leave his wife. She couldn't deny that anymore. The screenshots made her intentions obvious. She asked, "What happened to us now?" I told her that depended on whether she understood why her actions were wrong and was willing to rebuild trust. We started marriage counseling 8 weeks ago. Sarah initially tried to minimize her role, claiming she'd just been a supportive friend who got caught up in someone else's marriage problems. The counselor wasn't buying that narrative. Pointed out that Sarah had made deliberate choices to engage in intimate conversations with a married man, send photos, meet privately, and encourage his complaints about his wife. It took several sessions, but Sarah eventually acknowledged that she'd been pursuing an emotional affair. She admitted she'd been attracted to Derek and enjoyed the attention he gave her. She also admitted she'd been testing whether he'd be willing to leave Karen for her. The hardest part for her to accept was that she'd been willing to help destroy Derek's marriage and hurt his children for her own gratification. The counselor made her confront the reality that her actions had real consequences for real people. Last month, Derek made one final contact with Sarah. He sent a brief email saying Karen was pregnant with their third child, and they were working on rebuilding their marriage. He thanked Sarah for helping him realize how much he had to lose and asked her never to contact him again. Sarah showed me the email. She looked sad reading it, but also seemed to finally understand the gravity of what could have been lost. She deleted Derek's email and blocked his address. Told me she was ready to focus completely on fixing our marriage. We're still in counseling. Some days are better than others. Trust rebuilds slowly, and Sarah's learning that good intentions don't erase bad choices. She's also learning that other people's pain matters, and that marriage vows mean something. Derek kept his job and apparently his marriage, but at the cost of his freedom and career prospects. He chose to prioritize his family over his ego and is living with the consequences of almost losing everything. Karen got the transparency she demanded and a recommitment from her husband. She also got validation that her instincts about Sarah were correct. Most importantly, she maintained her family unit. Sarah lost her career momentum, her social standing, and her husband's trust. She's working to rebuild all three, but understands it will take time and consistent effort. I gained clarity about my wife's character and boundaries, about what I'll accept in my marriage. I also learned that sometimes the truth is the most powerful tool available. Everyone got exactly what their choices earned them. The screenshots didn't destroy Derek's marriage or Sarah's reputation. Their choices created the potential for destruction. The screenshots just made sure the right people knew what was really happening. Sometimes exposing the truth is the only way to restore balance. Derek and Sarah thought they could pursue their emotional affair in secret without consequences. They were wrong. Karen deserved to know what her husband was doing. I deserved to have my concerns taken seriously instead of being dismissed as insecure. In the end, everyone faced the reality of their actions. That's not revenge, that's just justice.